The human delegation arrived at the Concordance station exactly on time, which already surprised several alien observers. Humans were still considered new to interstellar society, and punctuality at this scale was rare even among older civilizations. The station itself floated like a silver ring around a calm blue star, its inner corridors filled with species from dozens of worlds, all gathered to witness the first official cultural exchange between Earth and the wider galaxy. Elias Ward stood near the edge of the main chamber, hands calmly folded behind his back. He was not a politician nor a soldier. He was a cultural analyst, chosen not for power, but for patience. Elias had spent most of his life studying how humans misunderstood one another across borders, languages, and customs. Compared to that, aliens were simply another challenge. Larger, stranger, but still understandable. At least, that was what he believed. Across the chamber, the Varithi delegation entered in near silence. Their movement was graceful, almost floating, though they walked like everyone else. Their skin reflected light softly, like polished stone warmed by the sun. At their center walked Princess Scialine. She was younger than Elias expected, though age among the Varithi was difficult to measure. Her eyes were wide and luminous, shifting color slightly as she observed the room. She carried no weapons, no visible technology, only a long sash that marked her royal status. The Concordance mediator announced the formal introduction. Elias stepped forward when his name was spoken, heart steady, expression respectful. This was not his first meeting with non-humans, but it was the most important one yet. Princess Scialine inclined her head in a way that was neither a bow nor a nod. Elias mirrored the gesture, careful not to exaggerate it. Every movement mattered here. As the two delegations settled into position, the station adjusted its internal gravity by a fraction, standard procedure to accommodate mixed species. The change was subtle, but noticeable. Princess Scialine swayed. It happened in less than a second. Elias reacted without thinking. He stepped forward and lightly placed his hand against her arm. To steady her, the chamber went silent. Every sound, every movement stopped, as if the station itself had frozen. Elias felt it immediately, the wrongness of the moment. Princess Scialine stiffened beneath his touch. Her skin felt warmer than expected, not unpleasant, but unfamiliar. She slowly turned her head and looked directly at him. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm, clear, and dangerously quiet. "Touch me one more time, human, and you'll feel the consequences." Elias withdrew his hand instantly, heart pounding now, his mind racing through every protocol he had memorized. He lowered his gaze slightly, a universal sign of apology among many species. "I apologize," he said. It was instinct. I meant no disrespect. Princess Scialine did not respond. Her eyes shifted color again, something between silver and deep blue. She turned away from him and resumed her place among the Varithi delegation. The mediator hesitated, then awkwardly resumed the proceedings. Words were exchanged, formal greetings continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Elias knew it. Everyone knew it. The rest of the session passed without incident, yet nothing felt settled. The Varithi remained distant, polite, but cold. When the exchange concluded earlier than scheduled, murmurs spread through the chamber like static. As the delegates dispersed, Elias remained still, staring at the space where the princess had stood moments before. He had studied alien customs for years. Touch sensitivity was common, but that reaction, it was not anger. It was fear, or something close to it. Later, alone in his assigned quarters, Elias replayed the moment again and again. The exact pressure of his hand, the way the princess's eyes had changed, the words she had chosen. Consequences, not punishment, not threat. Consequences. Elias accessed the Concordance archives, searching for any detailed information on Varithi biology and culture. What he found was limited. The Virithi were known to be private, selective in what they shared. Most records focused on their advanced navigation systems and their long history as mediators in galactic disputes. There was almost nothing about personal customs. That absence worried him more than anything else. Hours passed. Messages flooded the human delegation channel. Some officials demanded immediate clarification. Others suggested issuing a public apology. A few quietly questioned whether Elias should be recalled. He ignored them all. Instead, he sent a single, carefully worded request to the Virithi delegation, asking permission to review any cultural guidelines he might have violated. The reply came faster than expected. Request denied. No explanation. No elaboration. The following day, the Concordance received a formal notice from the Virithi. All cooperative programs were suspended. Navigation data sharing ceased. Cultural exchanges paused. Joint research initiatives placed on indefinite hold. The message was neutral in tone, but the effect was immediate. Systems that relied on Virithi calculations experienced delays. Trade routes were recalculated. Quiet panic spread beneath official calm. Humanity had not been attacked, but it had been isolated. Elias stood in the observation corridor, watching distant ships adjust their trajectories, knowing he was the reason. He expected anger from the Virithi, from his own people. Instead, there was only silence. That silence weighed heavier than any accusation. Days passed. Elias was officially removed from active duty but allowed to remain on the station. Few spoke to him now, not out of hostility, but discomfort. He had become a reminder of how fragile peace was. He returned to his research, digging deeper into fragmented records, linguistic patterns, half-translated Virithi texts. He noticed something strange in their language. There were many words for distance, space, and separation, but very few for physical closeness. One phrase appeared repeatedly in ancient ceremonial contexts. It did not translate cleanly, but the closest human equivalent was something like shared boundary, not touch. Shared boundary. Elias felt a chill. What if, for the Virithi, touch was not casual at all? What if it was not merely contact, but a crossing of something fundamental? He requested access to older concordance records, documents most species rarely consulted. Buried deep within them, he found a single reference, centuries old, describing a failed alliance with a now absent civilization. The reason for the failure was listed simply as unintentional bond initiation. No further details. Elias leaned back, staring at the screen. Bond. The word echoed in his mind. He thought of Princess Sayelin's reaction, not rage, not offense, but alarm, carefully controlled. A warning, not a threat. Touch me one more time, and you'll feel the consequences. What kind of consequence did not need force? What kind of consequence scared a princess more than a human diplomat? Elias closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. Humans were used to thinking of consequences as punishment. Pain. Loss. Retaliation. But maybe, in this case, the consequence was something else entirely. Something permanent. Something human instincts were never meant to trigger. Outside his window, the Concordance station continued its endless rotation, indifferent to misunderstandings and fragile alliances. Elias knew one thing with certainty now. This was not about blame. This was about responsibility. And whatever line he had crossed, the galaxy was waiting to see what humans would do next. The Concordance station did not feel the same anymore. Where once the halls were filled with soft conversations and shared curiosity, now there was a careful distance between species. Some delegates avoided the human section entirely. Others watched them with open concern, as if waiting for something worse to happen. Elias Ward felt that change everywhere he went. He moved through the station quietly, no longer wearing the official insignia of the human delegation. Dear Elias, his role had been suspended, but his mind refused to rest. The incident with Princess Aileen had become more than a diplomatic mistake. It was a puzzle, one that grew heavier with every unanswered question. The Varathi delegation remained isolated. Their quarters were sealed to all visitors. Messages sent to them went unanswered. The Concordance mediators insisted this was temporary, a cooling period, but Elias could see the truth in the data feeds. Trade slowed. Navigation routes adjusted. Several smaller species began requesting emergency recalculations, unable to rely on Varathi systems anymore. The galaxy was feeling the absence, and it all traced back to a single human reflex. Elias returned again and again to the old records he had uncovered. The phrase unintentional bond initiation appeared only once in official archives, but fragments of related texts existed elsewhere, hidden in linguistic footnotes and cultural warnings no one had taken seriously. He noticed a pattern. Whenever the Varathi were mentioned in older texts, they were described as observers, advisors, stabilizers, never conquerors, never rulers. Their power did not come from force, but from trust. Species relied on them because the Varathi never crossed boundaries, except when boundaries were crossed for them. Elias focused on one ancient translation, rough and incomplete. It spoke of a threshold of self, a concept that had no true human equivalent. According to the text, Varathi identity was not fixed at birth. It developed through carefully controlled interactions. Physical contact, especially unexpected contact, could alter that process, not harm it, alter it. Elias felt his chest tighten. If that was true, then his touch had not been an insult. It had been an intrusion into something deeply personal, something sacred. He requested a meeting with the Concordance Ethics Council, a rare move for someone no longer in official service. Surprisingly, they agreed. The council chamber was smaller than the main hall, filled with representatives from species who specialized in long-term stability rather than power. They listened as Elias explained his findings, his voice steady despite the weight of what he was saying. "I believe the princess wasn't threatening me," he said. "She was warning me. Whatever would have happened next would not have been punishment. It would have been a bond." Several council members shifted uneasily. One of them, an elder from a silicon-based species, spoke slowly. "Bonding is not unusual in the galaxy," it said, "but it is rarely accidental." "That's the point," Elias replied. "For humans, touch is often meaningless. For the Varathi, it may be life-changing." The council asked the question Elias feared most. Then why withdraw instead of explaining? Elias answered honestly, because explaining might not undo it, and because they may be afraid humans would repeat the mistake. The room fell silent. The council dismissed him without judgment, but Elias knew the truth now. The damage was not just done, it was ongoing. As long as humans did not understand what they had almost caused, the Varathi could not safely return. That night, Elias could not sleep. He stood by the observation window, watching stars drift past, thinking about Princess Aileen's eyes, the way they had changed color, the control in her voice. She had been protecting more than herself. She had been protecting him. The next morning, Elias did something no one expected. He recorded a message, not as a diplomat, not as a representative of Earth, but as a human being. The message was simple. He spoke slowly, choosing words that could be easily translated. "I made a mistake," he said. "Not because I broke a rule, but because I did not know the rule existed. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am asking for understanding, and if understanding is not possible, then guidance." The message was sent not only to the Varathi, but to the entire Concordance. Reactions came quickly. Some praised the honesty. Others criticized it as weakness. A few accused Elias of overstepping his authority. But the message spread. For the first time, humans were not defending themselves. They were not explaining intentions or minimizing impact. They were admitting ignorance and asking to learn. Hours passed with no reply from the Varathi. Then, quietly, a single message arrived in Elias's private channel. It was not signed. You should not have touched her. Elias replied immediately. You're right. There was a pause. Then another message. You do not know what you almost became. Elias swallowed. Then tell me. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, a transmission request appeared. Not public, not official, private. Elias accepted. Princess Syalan appeared on the screen. She looked tired, though her posture remained composed. Her eyes were dimmer than before, their color steady and restrained. You are persistent, she said. I'm human, Elias replied gently. It's one of our flaws. A corner of her mouth moved slightly, not quite a smile. You crossed a boundary, she said. Not with intent, but with impact. If you had touched me again, the bond would have completed. Elias leaned forward. What kind of bond? She hesitated. Responsibility, recognition, a shared identity link. You would have become necessary. To you? He asked. To my people, she answered. To our laws. Elias felt the weight of that. And that would have been bad? It would have been irreversible, Silene said. And you did not choose it? Neither did I, Elias thought. Why not explain this sooner? He asked. Because humans move quickly, she said. You act before understanding. We feared explanation would not be enough. Elias nodded slowly. You're not wrong. Silence stretched between them. Then Elias said the words that would change everything. Teach us. Silence studied him carefully. You cannot redesign an entire species. We've done it before, Elias replied. Not perfectly, but intentionally. She raised an eyebrow. Explain. Elias spoke of consent protocols, of social evolution, of how humans had learned, slowly and painfully, to question instincts that once defined them. He spoke of mistakes, of growth, of choosing restraint even when it felt unnatural. We don't want special treatment, he said. We want shared understanding. Silene's eyes shifted color again, softer this time. The consequence, she said quietly, was never meant for you. It was meant to protect us. And it did, Elias replied, but it also taught us something. The screen remained silent for a long moment. Then she said, If the Varathi return, it will not be as before. Elias nodded. It shouldn't be. The call ended. The following day, a formal announcement echoed through the concordance. The Varathi would re-engage, not as silent advisors, but as collaborators in a new initiative. Humanity had proposed something no species had dared suggest before, a shared framework for cross-species consent. Not rules imposed from above, but adaptable understanding, led by the species most likely to make mistakes. Humans. The galaxy watched closely. Some were skeptical, others hopeful. Princess Silene stood alone in her quarters, gazing at the stars, her thoughts heavy but clear. The human had frightened her, but he had also surprised her. He had not demanded forgiveness. He had asked for responsibility. And for the first time since the warning left her lips, she believed the consequence had found its proper shape. Not punishment, but change. Far away, Elias Ward stared at the same stars, knowing this was only the beginning. Humanity had almost crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. Now the galaxy would see whether humans could learn to stop before crossing the next one. The Concordance station slowly returned to life, but it was a different kind of movement now, not loud or busy, but careful. Species that once relied completely on Verathi guidance were adjusting, watching closely to see what would happen next. Everyone knew something important was unfolding, something that could reshape how civilizations interacted forever. Elias Ward was allowed to return to limited advisory status, though his role was unusual. He was no longer speaking for humanity. Instead, he was listening with it. Humans across multiple systems had received the message. What began as a single apology had turned into a conversation. Cultural experts, ethicists, engineers, and even artists joined the effort. Not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to understand how a simple action could carry such weight. Elias worked long hours, reviewing proposals sent from Earth and human colonies. Most of them focused on the same question: how could humans slow themselves down? Human instincts favored speed, reaction, movement. That had helped them survive on a dangerous world. But in a galaxy filled with fragile social boundaries, speed became a risk. The proposed framework was not a law. It was a system of awareness, a way for humans to signal intent before action, especially in shared spaces. Visual cues, audible pauses, environmental adjustments that encouraged waiting rather than acting. Other species watched with confusion. Why would a civilization redesign itself over a single mistake? Elias knew the answer, because humans had learned, again and again, that ignoring small mistakes led to large disasters. Later, Princess Scialine observed the process from a distance. She attended no meetings and offered no public guidance, but she watched everything. Every message, every adjustment. Every debate among humans about responsibility. What unsettled her most was not the effort, it was the sincerity. Humans argued fiercely with one another, but none questioned whether change was needed, only how to do it without losing themselves. That night, Scialine requested another private call with Elias. When his face appeared on the screen, she studied him quietly. "You are changing quickly," she said. "We don't have a choice," Elias replied. "The galaxy is bigger than our instincts. Many species would resist," she said. "They would call this loss of identity." Elias shook his head. "Identity isn't what you refuse to change. It's what survives the change." She considered that. "You know," she said slowly, "if the bond had completed, you would have been bound not just to me, but to every decision my people made." "That sounds exhausting," Elias said gently. For the first time, she smiled openly. "The consequence," she said, "would have consumed you." "I figured," he replied. "Humans are very bad at being symbols." Silence settled, but it was not uncomfortable. "The Concordance is afraid," Scialine said. "They fear this sets a precedent." "It does," Elias said. "That's the point." He told her about the latest development. Humans had begun designing a universal interaction buffer. Not technology that forced behavior, but systems that asked questions. Simple prompts that appeared in shared environments. Do you intend to approach? Do you intend to touch? Has consent been clearly given? They were optional, but humans were choosing to use them. Scialine felt something shift inside her. The Verathi believed identity evolved through care and restraint. Humans were learning that lesson without being taught directly. The Concordance Council convened an emergency session, not because of danger, because of uncertainty. Several elder species spoke openly. They worried humans were gaining influence, not through power, but through moral leadership. Others worried that if humans succeeded, older civilizations would be forced to reflect on mistakes they had buried long ago. Elias was invited to speak. He stood before the council, aware that history was pressing down on this moment. "We are not asking you to change," he said simply. "We are changing ourselves because we almost harmed someone without knowing it. If that scares you, imagine how it felt for her." He gestured gently toward Princess Scialine, who stood silently nearby. She warned me, Elias continued. She didn't punish me. She gave me a chance to stop. Humans don't always get second chances. When we do, we try not to waste them. The chamber was silent. Then something unexpected happened. A representative from a minor species spoke up. Their civilization had nearly collapsed centuries earlier due to misunderstood rituals. They supported the human initiative. Another followed, then another. Soon, voices filled the chamber, not in argument, but agreement. Many species had suffered because no one had slowed down to ask what a gesture meant. Princess Cyaline felt her chest tighten. The bond she feared had not formed, but something else had. Connection. The concordance voted. The human-led consent framework would be adopted as a voluntary standard, not enforced, shared. The announcement echoed across the station. Elias returned to the observation deck, exhausted but calm. He watched as ships resumed old routes, calculations stabilizing. The galaxy was breathing again. Princess Cyaline joined him quietly. You avoided the consequence, she said.
No, Elias replied. We accepted it. She looked at him, confused.
The consequence was responsibility, he continued. We just chose to carry it together. She nodded slowly. For the first time since the incident, she stepped closer. Not touching, but closer than before. You have learned restraint, she said. That is rare. We're still learning, Elias said. We mess up a lot. That may be your strength, she replied. As they stood there, the station lights dimmed slightly, signaling a return to normal operations. The crisis had passed, but something remained. Across the concordance, humans were now known as the species that paused. Not weak, not slow, deliberate. Elias felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in what humanity had chosen to be. Princess Cyaline looked out at the stars, her eyes reflecting countless possibilities. The galaxy will remember this, she said. Elias smiled softly. So will we. And somewhere in that shared silence, a future took shape. Not built on fear of consequences, but on understanding them before it was too late.